Greetings, guys, girls, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. I have not sat down and filmed a video for a little while because I just had a holiday in LA for a couple weeks. So I went to KCON, did some vlog filming and some other special fun stuff that you can see if you join my Patreon at patreon.com/savvycat. I worked on a really cool project, which I'm excited to share. But yeah, it feels real weird sitting down again. It's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like forever. Speaking of Patreon, before I do get into this video, I would like to say a massive thank you to today's patron of the day, Steve. I appreciate you and all of your support so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, as I just said, you can go to patreon.com/savvycat. It starts at as little as £1 a month, and I appreciate it greatly. Today's video, as you can tell by the title, I am bringing you another addition to our Pick Me Gay Conservative Queer series. This is a popular series. People seem to quite like these, you know. There's never a shortage of things to say. There's never a shortage of videos to look at and people to roll our eyes at. There are a lot of hypocrites out in the world. And there is definitely not a shortage of these conservative queer pick-me gays. And some of the conservative queers we are looking at today are repeat offenders who end up in all of these videos, like Clarkson and Evan, and we get to see what they're up to at the moment and what other stuff they have to say. So they're always a fun addition to these videos, as well as a bunch of other people that we haven't actually seen before. Before we do get into it, I would like to let you know that today's video is sponsored by Pride Counseling, and I will tell you a little bit more about them in a little bit.
This is why public acceptance of gay people is declining. Nobody in their right mind wants to be completely inundated with pride flags for the month of June, whether you are gay or straight. We are all sick of it. I don't need to see a pride flag to feel welcome in my country or to not feel oppressed. Do you know what this says to me? Not that we're a marginalized community. In fact, it says the opposite. That we are a community that incessantly needs validation in order to feel welcome in society because we're so insecure about ourselves. If this is something that you feel like you need every June, ask yourself why. Because anybody in their right mind, gay or straight, doesn't need this or want it. This is not equality. This is privilege. And I hate to break it to you, but true equality doesn't come with privilege. So are we really fighting for equal rights, or are we fighting for special treatment?
Oh no, oh dear, I can't believe there are pride flags everywhere during Pride Month. It's an attack on me, it's too much, it's unnecessary, it's privilege. Rainbow pieces of cloth everywhere, that is such a privilege for us. Who needs that? Get over it, bro. It's not that big of a deal. It's pieces of rainbow cloth that are put up around the country to show, support for queer people, right? That's all it is. It doesn't do any harm to literally anyone. It's just rainbow flags that are up. It's not pushing an agenda or forcing anything on anyone. They're decorative. It's decorations. They're rainbows that are there to show support. That's all it is. No one needs it. No one is on their knees begging them to light up the White House in rainbow and put up pride flags everywhere. No one needs it. But it's also a thing of it's just kind of what happens now. And yes, it is largely performative. A lot of companies and, the government and everything put out pride flags to show support during Pride Month to make profit off of it and to make you feel safe and secure, and then don't care about you the rest of the year. And I think that that's a problem, obviously. And a lot of queer people get upset about that, validly. But at the same time, I do think that it's important in the sense that it does tell queer people that they are safe and that it is okay to be queer, right? Not even that long ago, that was absolutely not the case. There was not pride stuff in every shop. There was not pride stuff everywhere every June. It was a much smaller thing. It was a much bigger deal when companies showed support. So although it is largely performative, I do think that it is still very reflective of, how much more tolerant people are now, and also can still help a lot of young queer people feel more normal and more accepted, and can help them feel like there is a place for them, as well as I'm sure a lot of older queer people feel really proud to see that and see how normal it is, and everything they fought for is exists, If you don't like it, that's fine. But like, get over it. It's not doing any harm. It's literally just flags, okay? Like, calm down. You don't need it, but you also, like, what damage is it doing being there? How is it a privilege to just have a flag up? Like, showing support is not a privilege. You don't need it to feel safe or welcome. Okay, that's good for you. I'm glad that you don't need that to feel safe and welcome, but some people really appreciate that. Don't take it away from them. This is a video of a Pride Day at a Canadian school where they have rainbows and the kids waving pride flags. And obviously it's just a Pride Day at a school. And I'm assuming it's a primary school and elementary school. But then obviously this guy called Conservative Ant, who is, by the way, a founder of Gays Against Groomers, because of course he is, has to add his own little message here.
Listen, I know this is Canada, but they parallel us. Pull your kids. It's time. Pull them, okay? You know, can you imagine if for a second that was going on with this? All riots would break loose. Pull them now. Have a great day, though. Have a great day.
It's so funny saying, like, can you imagine what would happen if they were doing this with Christianity? Like, all hell would break loose. Everyone would be rioting. Bro, I don't know if you know this, but already there's some weird shit happening at schools of like the Pledge of Allegiance, which is a fucking strange thing to do. I don't think that's a Christian thing, but it's still really fucking strange. And then also a lot of schools do push a lot of Christian stuff. I was unaware of this until recently, but finding out that a lot of schools in the UK have like religious education that's like compulsory, as well as like a lot of hymns. They sing a lot of hymns at public schools, not Christian schools, but they learn hymns and Christian songs that are like, you have to do. I don't know what they do in the US about that, but I know some schools teach things like creationism and they're public schools. And a lot of other religious Christian-based studies, and it's like talked about in class. Like, I know that happens. I've seen people talk about that happening. And let me tell you, there's not riots about it. It's just a normal thing that exists in schools. It's a normal thing. You wouldn't say anything about it. A lot of parents love to talk about it. A lot of things have been pulled from curriculums because they don't align with Christian values. Like, they might not be going in there preaching Christianity, but they align the curriculum with Christian values, which I'd say is a similar sort of thing. And even that aside, it is so obvious that these schools and these places have never had like a culture day. I was told recently that that's like not a normal thing that happens in the US. I don't know where else it's a normal thing outside of New Zealand, but every school I went to would always have a culture day or a culture week. And I think I've talked about this before, of like, there'd be a whole week or a day set aside that was dedicated to learning about different cultures. So like at intermediate school, every classroom was dedicated to a different culture and like an art from that culture, or their food or history or language, or a bit of a mix of everything. So you'd have like, I think our periods were 45 minutes long. You would have 45 minutes in each classroom learning a different cultural practice. So there'd be like, we did like Samoan art. There was like Indian food, like African dance, like etc. There's just a bunch of different things that you would like learn about. I did a whole thing on Indian dance in year 7. We did a whole term dedicated to learning about Indian dance and the culture, and we had like a Bollywood dancer come in and like teach it to us. And then at high school we did a similar thing, but it had a little bit more education attached to it that went a little bit more in depth. And at the time you were encouraged to dress in traditional culture wear. I don't know if that's still a thing, but there'd be like people teaching you how to like put on saris and like teaching you about traditional dress wear. It was all done with the purpose of appreciation, but I don't know if they would still do that. A lot of people didn't participate in that aspect of it. It was just all about celebrating different cultures. It was about learning about different cultures and engaging in them and appreciating them and having everyone come together and like celebrate things and learn about things, because it's important to know about the world and about other people and about other cultures. And it just makes people more accepting, and it helps aid in people's understanding of people. And just it's just such a wonderful thing to engage with other cultures and to learn about them and to admire them and respect them and learn all these things about them. And I'm sure the people who were part of those cultures felt very appreciative of that as well. And that's sort of all that's happening here, because like there is a subculture. Like gay culture is a thing, right? There's like common ground that we have. There's a lot of subculture. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of community there. And having a day that's dedicated to learning about that and about celebrating that, like, tells queer kids that they're accepted. It helps kids become more tolerant of queer kids, and it helps allow an understanding and a connection and people to become more connected with themselves and with their friends and develop this understanding. And there is nothing harmful about that. It's not forcing your sexuality on children. It's not telling kids they have to be gay. It's telling kids that it is okay to be gay, and it is telling kids that they should accept people's differences, and not just accept them, but celebrate them and appreciate them. And I don't understand why you have a problem with that. I don't think it's worth, I don't know, pulling them out of school and denying them of a proper education. I don't think it's worth that. These people are so just unempathetic and just so selfish and caught up in their own wants and needs, and don't care to look outside of themselves and don't care to listen to people and try to understand people and have conversations with people, because they're so caught up in how they feel. And I think, personally and honestly, that requires a good, healthy dose of therapy. Because I am a firm believer that the world would be a better place if we all received therapy. You know, a lot of us struggle with mental health because, you know, the people before us needed therapy and didn't get therapy. There's a lot of people who don't know how to communicate boundaries and don't know how to listen and have conversations and express themselves and empathize with people, and not even empathize with people, but just communicate and take the time to try to understand. And queer people are often very much the most affected by other people's lack of therapy and understanding, even from other queer people, which means that we are more likely to be actively seeking out therapy, which is where today's sponsor, Pride Counseling, comes in. Pride Counseling is an online therapy service where you can connect with a licensed and professional therapist who is specialized in working with queer people, which I think is absolutely fantastic. A lot of queer people can feel afraid of coming out or talking about queer-related issues with therapists, and so I think that it is a really fantastic thing to have someone who can relate to that, who has experience with that, and who you can feel safe communicating that to. Once you are connected to a therapist, you can talk to them however you feel comfortable, whatever works for you best, whether that be through video call, phone call, text message, etc. It is entirely up to you. And they're always only a message away, and so you can schedule appointments whenever suits both of you at any time, which is such a handy thing. Like, flexibility is so helpful. And you are also able to switch therapists at any given time with no explanation needed and no additional charge, because it is important to work with someone who connects with you and that you feel comfortable talking with. With Pride Counseling, you get the same professionalism and quality as an in-person therapist, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you at a more affordable price. I have been in therapy for almost a decade now. I actually have an appointment in a couple hours. I had a short break over COVID, but I've come back to it and it has helped me so much. I'm again a firm believer in therapy. I love therapy. It has helped me so much. And I understand that it is a difficult thing for a lot of people to have access to because of time restrictions, because of just life restrictions, financial restrictions, and Pride Counseling is a more flexible and affordable option. If that is something you were able to do, I highly do recommend it. And if you use my link, pridecounseling.com/kiwi, or click the link in the description, then you will get 10% off your first month. So thank you so much, Pride Counseling, for sponsoring today's video. I hope that it is able to help some of you out. And yeah, let's get back into the video.
If I had a daughter, which I don't want her in a locker room with men. And I certainly don't want my son in the women's locker room. It's literally that simple. Well, joining me now to talk about all of this is one of the founders of Gays Against Groomers. You know him as Conservative Ant on Instagram and so many other social media platforms. Anthony Raimondi is with us. Conservative Ant. It's great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too.
What do you make of this hearing and the people that spoke out against this and really giving it back to many of the Democrats in the room?
Look, I give her so much credit for standing up for women, because I could have sworn not too long ago there was a bunch of women wearing pink hats that were screaming for women's rights, and they've all completely disappeared. And now we just have men wanting to take over women's spaces, and now we're the bigots, or they're the bigots, because they don't want men in their locker rooms. It's insanity to me.
I do have one big question for people who talk about, like, I don't want my son going into the women's locker room. I don't want my daughter going into the men's locker room and bathrooms and such. What do you do when you are out with your small child without your partner? If you, as a man, are out in public with your daughter, like if you're at a restaurant, if you're at the movie theaters, if you're at the mall or whatever, and your daughter needs to use the bathroom, what do you do? Because most parents will take their small children into the bathroom that aligns with the parent's gender. So you as a man will take your small child into the men's bathroom with you so you can supervise them. Because if you're sending your small child into the women's restroom by themselves, and like what, you're gonna say, no, okay, so I don't have to take my daughter into the men's room, I'm gonna use the parents' room. And the parents' room is what? Oh, the parents' room is a gender-neutral bathroom? It's a gender-neutral space? Wow! And that's fine? And that works for you? Like, it's such a wild thing to say. Like, you should be taking your children into the bathroom with you when they are small so you can supervise them. And wouldn't that be so much easier and so much better if that was a gender-neutral space, as in the only place that is open for people is where you wash your hands? Like, the problem with the men's room is that there's like a urinal like out in the public space, right? Where you maybe don't want your daughter going into that or whatnot, right? And so it's like, if it's a gender-neutral space, it's all cubicles and the only shared space is where you wash your hands. And in some cases, the cubicles have sinks in them. You just like go in, use the toilet, wash your hands, and then you leave the room. Like, why is that a big deal? What is the problem with that? And you're talking about, like, locker rooms. You don't want your daughter to go into the men's locker room or your son to go into the women's locker room, like, where they're getting changed and such. Nudity, firstly, is not inherently bad. We've made it into a sexual thing, but nudity in bodies is not a sexual thing unless it's in a sexual context, unless you are sexualizing bodies, which you absolutely shouldn't do. But, like, even that aside, like, what do you think is gonna happen in these bathrooms? Because, like, you're worried about men pretending to be women, going into women's restrooms and assaulting women. But, like, if there is someone who has the intention of assaulting a woman, they don't give a fuck. They're going to go in and do that anyway. They don't have to dress as a woman to do that. Trans people are just trying to exist and use the bathroom they feel comfortable in. They're not going in there for any other purpose. And a predator doesn't care. A predator is going to go in regardless of anything. Trans people are just people living their lives that need to pee. And you need to get the fuck over it.
I want to make something very clear. The trans community and the gay community should be completely separate, because I'm gay and I don't want to put on a dress. I don't want to change my body parts. I've never had the desire to put on heels or a wig, perform in front of kids, perform in front of adults with cocktails at night. I'm not that person, okay? I'm just a gay guy that is happy that we got through the AIDS epidemic and we succeeded that. And then gay marriage was legalized. Great, huge accomplishments for the gay community. Why can't the gay community just go back now, live their lives? They got their accomplishments, they got everything that they wanted. They're accepted, they're equal to everybody else, but no. Now men, no matter who they are, can put a dress on, say they're trans, even if they haven't changed their body parts. You know, there's stuff down there. They can be a total dude and go into a woman's bathroom, a woman's locker room, a woman's dorm room, and say they're a woman and show their junk to any woman that's trying to have her personal space. No, the trans and the gay community are separate.
Firstly, I think you got trans and drag queen mixed up there for a second. Trans people aren't all going out and just dressing as the opposite gender to perform for people. They are expressing themselves as their true gender and living everyday life. Drag queens and trans people are separate, completely separate. And also, yes, trans and gay are two separate things. However, we are part of the same community because we face a lot of the same struggles. And without trans people, gay rights, queer liberation would not be where it is today. Trans people were leading people in the gay rights movement, and we absolutely owe it to them to stand by them and continue to fight for them and with them. You can't just be like, I got everything I want and I don't want to continue fighting. I don't want to be a part of this conversation. I'm just gonna leave it and leave them to struggle because I've already won. And also, like, I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but I don't know since when getting marriage equality is just the end of the conversation, the end of the fight. There's no more homophobia in the world. There's no more homophobia in my home country. Homophobia doesn't exist anymore because now I can get married. That's not how it works. You see it all the time with fucking misogynists too, being like, women have the vote, so now they're equal. It's like, just because you have the same legal rights, which queer people still don't have the same legal rights, by the way. There's still a bunch of discrimination that is legally allowed to happen. But even that aside, hypothetically speaking, if we had all of the same legal rights, it does not mean we have all of the same social rights. There are still people being kicked out on the street for being gay. There are people who are being sent to conversion therapy. There are people who don't feel safe existing as themselves. The suicide rates are high. The homelessness rates are high. Like, there is not social equality. The fight is not over. Just because you are a cis white man who doesn't struggle to face a lot of this other oppression that so many of us do, doesn't mean that the fight is over for everyone. All right? You can't just sit there and be like, I'm happy so everyone else is happy and I don't want to deal with this anymore. Fuck all of you. I'm going to just like appeal to the conservatives so that I can continue to sit on my throne above everyone else. Like, fuck you, man. You can't do that. I don't understand how you spent a portion of your life fighting for equality or sitting on the sidelines while other people fought for your equality. And then once you have it, supposedly, you then decide you just want to pass it on to someone else to deal with. Like, you're like, I don't have to suffer with it anymore, so I just will let these other people suffer for it because I don't feel like fighting anymore. I've got everything I want. Like, that's such a terrible thing to do. Like, you know how it feels, and now you're just sitting there and allowing other people to experience that without caring at all and actively trying to disconnect from them. That's just such a terrible thing to do.
It's funny to me how we have so many gay rights activists in this country now that gay people already have equal rights. Like, there are so many gay people who didn't come out of the closet until after 2015, when gay marriage was already made legal across the entire country, who now want to pretend like they're fighting some noble fight.
Have I missed it? Have I missed the battle?
You have missed the war.
So you want to be perceived as an activist, like you're fighting for something noble, without actually having to do the hard work of genuine activism. Like, I came out of the closet in 2010 at 14 years old in the American rural South, and even I am not sitting here playing victim or acting like I'm some gay rights figurehead. Because I know that my story and my experiences pale in comparison to what the gay people before me went through in, say, the 80s or the 50s or even the Victorian era. Like, it's such a slap in the face to all of the people who genuinely fought for gay rights, for all of these clout chasers to come in and paint themselves as activists without actually having to do any real activism.
And here we are again with marriage equality equals full legal equality. There have been, 437 anti-queer bills that have been brought up in Parliament in the US. this year alone. That's ridiculous. And you want to sit here and say that gay people have equal rights and that they're fully accepted in your country? Like, that's just not even a little bit true. Already recently, it was passed that, like, people can deny people business because of their sexuality. Like, that happened recently. There is not full legal equality. There is definitely not full social equality. And there is still a lot to fight for. It didn't just end because marriage equality happened. Like, that's a fantastic thing. It's great. I'm glad that, like, gay people can get married now, obviously, but that's not the end of it all. Just because, again, you are a cis white man who has privilege in every other way doesn't mean you can be like, everything is chill now because I have privileges. Like, go away, bro. No one is denying the hard work of queer people in the past. It's just so interesting that, you know, you hopped off the train as quickly as you could. Marriage equality happened and suddenly everything is a-okay, peachy keen. Gay people are loved and accepted by everyone. And the whole thing of, like, look at other countries. They're truly struggling. Like, shut up, man. Two things can be true at the same time. You know, like, it can be worse in other places in the sense that, you know, being gay itself is illegal and punishable by death, by prison time, etc. Like, obviously that is absolutely horrific and that does happen in certain places, but that doesn't mean that the struggles in other countries aren't real. Two things can be true at the same time. Yeah? You can fight for multiple things at once. You can care about more than one thing. That is a possibility to do. And just because you're looking at other people and places who have it worse doesn't mean that what is bad in your country isn't bad.
I feel like many of these trans children would have just ended up being gay. And when did we decide that there was something wrong with that? You're actually not wrong at all, and we have science to prove it. So this here is an article from the NIH on gender dysphoria in adolescence. Gender dysphoria being the medical term for struggling with your gender identity. You can see here, after their findings, 80% of children who meet the criteria for GDC, the GD, gender dysphoria, recedes with puberty. Instead, many of these adolescents will identify as non-heterosexual or gay. And do you want to know the most frustrating part about this? The gay community in America, knowing that 80% of these kids, if they were allowed to go through their puberty, would just end up being gay, are still advocating for them to get on puberty blockers. If we care about gay rights in America, why don't we talk about the bodily autonomy that's being taken away from these young gay children who cannot consent to these procedures? The gay community is literally eating its own under the guise of being inclusive.
One crucial piece of information that you are leaving out of this is that this research was done over 20 years ago. I need to correct myself here and say the study itself wasn't done 20 years ago, but the people who are involved in the study were kids 20 years ago. So obviously the evidence of gender dysphoria and stuff is like over 20 years old, because they obviously can't do an updated version of this on people who were kids in the current time because they're still kids now. So in order to get an updated version of this, you know, you have to wait until the kids are adults, and the times obviously change as that happens. So yeah, that's my bad. I worded that poorly, but the study itself is more recent, but the people it's done on were kids from 20 years ago. Okay. And that is a very important piece of information because back then, being gay wasn't accepted, right? It wasn't talked about. You weren't allowed to talk about it in school. You weren't allowed to validate it. Homophobia was rampant, right? And gender roles were heavily, heavily enforced. If you liked Barbies, if you liked the color pink, then you were a girl. That was a girl's thing. And if boys expressed that they liked that, other kids would bully them and call them a girl. And girls who liked, you know, cars and trucks and the color blue and such and such and such, those were boys' things. If you liked those things, then you were a boy, right? So because of those heavy gender roles and the fact that being gay wasn't on TV, it wasn't in books, it wasn't in the media, it wasn't talked about, it wasn't anywhere, these kids didn't know that that was a thing. And because there was no gay representation, people didn't talk about it, it was seen as this big thing that was just very hush, you couldn't ever speak about it, right? These kids who, you know, a boy liked a boy, you know who likes boys? Girls do. And a girl likes a girl, you know who likes girls? boys do is of course going to lead to them having gender dysphoria. Boys can't like boys. Girls can't like girls. That's not how it works. Boys like girls and girls like boys. So if you are struggling with those feelings and you don't know what they mean, it makes sense that they would then get confused with that being gender identity. They like the same thing that boys like. They like girls. So that means that they must be a boy because they don't know what gay is. No one talks about it. It's not anywhere. And this is why it's so important to have inclusive learning, to have queer representation in the media, because kids need to know what that is. Kids deserve to feel normal. Kids deserve to feel happy and comfortable and accepted, 80% of those people grew up to find out instead that they were actually gay because they were introduced to what that means, and I can't say that with absolute certainty, but it would be interesting to see another study like this done now, where there is more queer acceptance, where people do talk about being queer at schools, where it is seen more in the media. Kids have an understanding of what that means and that is okay. It would be very interesting to see an updated version of this. As you said, 80% of those kids grew up to find out that they were actually gay, but 20% of them weren't. And 20% of them, if they were able to receive gender affirming care at that time, would probably be much happier now. This is why inclusive learning is so important. No one is trying to turn gay kids trans. It's just that some kids would be so much better off with that option and with the knowledge that they can be whoever they want to be. And if you go on puberty blockers and then decide that's not what you want to do anymore, you can go off puberty blockers. They are reversible. You always say that people have to pass in order for it to be valid. If a trans woman wants to use the women's restroom, she has to pass. But it's a lot harder to pass if you aren't able to receive gender affirming care until you're much older because your voice has dropped. You've gone through male puberty. If you're able to stop yourself from going through puberty, then you're going to be able to pass easier as an adult. Not that that matters. You don't have to pass, but considering this is their argument, it just doesn't make any sense,
Well, I woke up and y'all are back on your bullshit already this morning. Here we go. This person thinks that I hate pride and oppose the views of my community because of how I was raised. Because y'all are so delusioned that you couldn't possibly believe that you're the problem, right? That I wouldn't have a problem with y'all for any reason other than how I was raised. Let's get into it. First of all, I don't hate pride. I just don't wish to partake because I don't feel welcome there. Why don't I feel welcome there? Because of comments like this. Also, I don't really feel comfy in an environment where we choose to involve children and even push to involve children in our schmexual choices. It's not cool, right? Like my good buddy Aunt says, like Lady Maga says, I say all the time, we were good. We were Gucci. We didn't have a problem. We had rights. We could get married until you tried to involve children. My problem with the views of the community as a whole currently, aside from a select few individuals, is that you want to involve children. And don't say, well, that's not what pride's about. You're right. That's not what pride's about. That's not what it should be about. But you've made it about that. I oppose the community currently, the parts of the community who want to do things to children. I can't even say the word on TikTok, but it rhymes with mutilation of children before the age of 18. I oppose schmexual education in schools, no matter what gender or schmex ed they are teaching. I oppose lewd acts in front of children.
I find it so interesting how so many people, queer people included, just make everything about sex. Yes, it's a sexuality. Yes, it's about who you are attracted to, but it is so much more than sex. It's also about love, and it's about connection, and it's about just comfort in being yourself. There is so much more to it. It's not pushing sex on kids. It's telling kids that it is okay to be who you are. It's talking about love, you know? It's not just sexuality either. There's a lot of romantic orientations that exist. It's also including asexuality. Being trans has absolutely nothing to do with sex at all. Like, it's just absolutely mind-baffling to me that so many people just take it and they're like, this is just sex. No, it's not. That's literally like the least important part about this. That's not even a part of the conversation at all when we're talking about kids. And also, I'm sorry, but saying you don't think there should be sex education in school at all is the biggest, most horrifying red flag ever. Sex education is so important for so many reasons. A very big reason why sex education and queer sex education is so important in schools is the like AIDS epidemic, right? Because there was no education around that. So safe sex wasn't a thing that people knew about between two men, right? Because no one's ever taught that. And that's why a lot of condom ads now are targeted towards gay men, because they don't learn in school that you have to use protection in order to keep from transmitting STIs and HIV. Like, if you don't learn it, then you don't know, right? If you're taught that the only way you can get an STI is like penis and vagina penetration, then you know, it's gonna happen. And another reason sex education is so important for kids at an age-appropriate level is because kids who were being sexually abused and taken advantage of don't know what's going on. They don't know how to talk about that. They don't know that it's abnormal. They're not taught about it, so they don't say anything. There have been so many cases of kids picking up age-appropriate, like, books about sex with, like, pictures or descriptors or whatever, and showing an adult, this is what this person does to me. And it helps them hugely. If you are opposed to kids learning about that, then you are, by default, just being completely complacent with abuse happening towards children. Like, I'm sorry, but that is what you are doing. It is important to know about these things. It is important to know about consent. It is important to know about your body. It's obviously going to be done at an age-appropriate level, and sex education is never about being like, yeah, go out and have sex. Go out and do reckless things. That's like literally the opposite of what it is. It's statistically proven that schools that teach abstinence only have the highest rate of pregnancies because people don't know how to have safe sex. They don't know what that is. They don't know how pregnancy happens. Teenagers, kids, they don't have this understanding. They're more likely to rebel. They're less likely to talk about it and to feel comfortable speaking about sex. They don't know how it works or what it is or how to be protected or how to stop pregnancies. Like, you have to teach these things. It's so important. And when you're talking about sexuality, again, it's important to help kids feel accepted. And gay sex education is important because gay people exist and need to know that safe sex is important for them as well. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that you make everything about sex and also that you just are so opposed to sex. I think this is all I have time for today. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. And a massive thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Harry, Toulouse, Bobby, Sparrow, Josh, Mandy, Robbie, Ikazel, Jessica, Eldo, Trini, Raven, Danielle, Enoli Like Cannoli, Elias, Jewel, Apollo, Taylor is Trying, Boston, and Chris. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you'd like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, as well as podcasts a week early. And then for £3 and up, you get things such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, and more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.